Welcome to Rainmakers, where we cover the world, and we've been very fortunate to have the first two parts of our three-part series with Reeta Roy, the head of the Mastercard Foundation. Those are behind us. Now coming up is the last part, and she puts it all together. Gail, this has been really pretty exciting for us to get to even talk that long with Reeta, because we learned an awful lot.
Yeah, we really did. She's an amazingly articulate woman, but she cares so much about what she does as a career that, as we said before, she spent her whole life getting prepared for this job.
Yeah, one of the things I was impressed with that we really didn't get to talk about, last time was the partnerships that they have done with regard to microfinance. They went to Equity Bank in Kenya. Dr. James Mwangi, who has a relationship to Seattle where we live, and we have been excited about the fact that Mastercard has been able to supply more funds for microfinance loan. Again, Mastercard Foundation, I need to make sure that I get that clear. But they provided more funds for development at the low end of the economic scale so that they can build themselves up.
Right. They actually work with over 25 organizations in the microfinance field. So they picked them from all over the world where they've done great innovative projects and programs that actually, as Reeta likes to say, they come up with fresh ideas, and they like to support fresh ideas.
And interesting, she in the last episode, she talked about investing in women. And of course, again, investing is a word that some people will hear here in the United States, and they won't really take it in the same way that someone who is in a low-income country will take it. They are going to say, yes, thank you very much for the loan. Now I'm going to go and take it, I'm going to do something with it. And in microfinance, the payback rate around the world is 98%.
It's amazing. Well, because there's a lot of peer pressure to repay the loans because those people in the community want to borrow the money next. And so there's much better payback from microfinance loans than there is from other loans around the world.
Particularly with women.
Yes.
As the quote from that Reeta quoted, a woman farmer who was a borrower who told her, when you invest in me, you invest in my village. That again shows the importance of making sure that women and girls have access to capital.
Interestingly too, Stan, these women are not using this money to go out and buy big things. They're going out and using it to buy things like used clothing or a wheelbarrow so that they can become a recycler. So these are not huge things. They may be buying a goat, they may be buying a sewing machine, but they're small incremental changes that can change their life. And as that one woman said, it can change my village.
And something that we've seen, and we see it time after time after time, regardless of the continent that we're on, is that when you do invest in women, in a low-income country, you do truly invest in the community because women will spend it on their family, they'll spend it on their community, they won't spend it on beer and cigarettes.
Or gambling, or even tea. And, one of the things that we have to understand is in some of these countries, they're not allowed to drink alcohol, but tea is a big social pastime. So men will go to the tea houses and drink tea, while the women actually farm and grow the micronutrients, the small plants and vegetables and fruits that their family needs.
So something that I've been interested in about the minute or so that we have left, what's in it for Mastercard Foundation?
Well, certainly global social responsibility. Because it does say Mastercard on it, even though they're two separate entities. It's a really good way for the organization to present itself to the world. But it's just smart. It makes sense because we know when people are doing better and thriving financially, wars and global health issues tend to be reduced.
Yeah, I always go back to the phrase about floating all boats. And frankly, if you're able to float all boats, then what you do is you improve the world. Like we were talking last time, if all of a sudden the 2.6 billion people on the planet who were living on $2 a day or less had $10 a day, then that definitely would float all boats. All right, so here we go. The last part of the interview with Reeta Roy, and we'll be back after that. Please take some notes here and then go to mastercardfoundation.org because you're going to want to be involved even more and get yourself involved in helping improve the world. On the Mastercard Foundation website it says this: we are inspired by organizations that are innovative, consistently generating new insights and working to expand access to impactful programs. You've really described an awful lot of those. But in achieving access to impactful programs, what is your advice? Rita Roy is one of the leaders in the world in this particular space. What is your advice to companies who may want to come along with the Mastercard Foundation?
I'm going to take some liberties and take your motto, which is to learn, engage, and act. And I would say this to any company, any individual, any government, any other funder. If you're interested in a particular issue, take time to learn and take time to speak to a diverse set of people with different experiences and are going to bring different perspectives on that issue you care about. And once you feel that you have enough knowledge, then start to engage and take action. For the Mastercard Foundation, while we may have had two particular areas, microfinance and youth education, we needed to take time as well to learn because both of those areas are so vast. And we invested a huge amount of time learning from others, learning from experts, but most importantly, listening from people we want to serve through our programs. And it's that listening, that action of really seeking to understand, which gave us confidence with the strategies that we have developed and the partners we have found.
Earlier, you talked about what you've just given some advice to individuals, but you've also talked about what the individuals in the lower income countries are doing, that you're helping them save. What is the impact of microsaving? What's the impact on a family in Malawi, for example, who are living on less than $2 a day, but they're able, through your help at the Mastercard Foundation, to save money?
Oh, let me say this. They're doing it through their own creativity and their own inventiveness, trying to find ways to save money. And whether it's saving money in a flower pot, saving money in a shoebox or in their shoes, they're finding ways to save money. And what we're trying to do is find ways to close that gap. What they really need access to is secure, accessible, private, and affordable savings accounts, whether that's through microfinance institutions or through banks. And you can imagine the issue even more compounded if you're a young person. Nearly all of the young people who are touched through our programs are already economically active. And I'm talking about young people between the ages of 14 or 15 up to 24. They may be in school and they're trying to learn, but at the same time they've got to earn because they've got to earn to be able to help their families. And so the power of a savings account, it may seem so basic to us, is actually much, much more than the value of the dollars sitting in that account. More than anything else, what young people have told me is that having a savings account, having something which is theirs, which they control, a resource which they are creating, gives them the ability to actually think about tomorrow and to make a plan and to think about a future. And whether that future means being able to go to school, helping their mom with her little business in the market, it's a plan. And it's about creating options. And so when I think about the power of micro savings for young people, it's about the power to dream and the power to actually act on those dreams, to act and to bring those dreams to reality.
You talked just here about money in a shoe or in a flower pot, but earlier, and you've also talked about technological changes such as mobile banking.
Yes.
Is that something that the Mastercard Foundation is helping to create, a larger network of mobile banking so that savings gets out of the flower pot and into something that earns interest?
Absolutely, like a cell phone or into a savings account, yes. We're actually working with the Grameen Foundation right now to explore a number of technologies associated with helping microfinance institutions use technology better to do greater outreach to the poor. We're also working with Opportunity International to create different kinds of access points. Some of those are through mobile banks which actually go to different locations, and some of that's through cell phones. So to create new services which people who are living under $2 a day can actually access.
You also mentioned the word government just a moment ago, and I got to ask about that. What advice would you give to governments, particularly those in Africa? And I'm not talking about the governments at the highest level, but those even at the level of the villages themselves. What advice would you give to governments as to how they can help their people overcome poverty?
I have to say that without question, if we are to think about solving all of these problems, and just given the magnitude and the size of the disparities that we see, whether it's in education and healthcare and access to financial services, government is a critical part of the solution. There can be no scale without government and government partnership. And so much of the work that we're doing is to figure out what are the most cost-effective, trusted, relevant solutions to creating greater access to education, greater access to financial services. And part of our job is to showcase what's working and what's working well as showcase what isn't working, so that government decisions, policymakers can make wise decisions about how to invest precious and often scarce resources and to make smart decisions about what can best impact the greatest number of people in their country.
There's a phenomenon that we at Rainmakers have found, and that is that people, particularly girls, in countries in Africa who take advantage of opportunities that are provided by entities such as the Mastercard Foundation and BRAC, they give back. Have you seen that phenomenon is actually happening and that there is giving back going on?
What is amazing to me when I meet and talk with young people across Africa, and that's true in East as well as in West Africa, and I ask them about what they'd like to achieve, it always staggers me that they, without any prompting, talk about, without necessarily using these words, wanting to give back. And they always talk in terms of wanting to help their families, wanting to help their communities, wanting to help another young person in a very similar situation. And that piece around giving back, being part of a positive change, is almost universally true in many of the young people I've talked to. And so what we have tried to do is to continue to nurture that. And there's a phenomenal organization known as the Global Give Back Circle, based in Kenya, which was created by a wonderful and very inspirational woman called Linda Lockhart. And it's a program which focuses on helping young girls complete secondary school, access higher education, whether that's a vocational education, whether that's 2-year or 4-year university degree, but basically to transition them from school into the workforce, and it's to help them find jobs. A critical part of the formula is about mentoring these young women, but it's also about asking them, and they come from extremely impoverished backgrounds, asking them to think about how they can give back and how they can make a commitment to give back. It has to be one of the most empowering acts to be able to ask someone who comes from a very difficult situation, a very impoverished situation, to think about giving back, because you're basically saying to them, you have value and you have something to offer and you have a gift which you can share with someone else. And that is what the Global Give Back Circle does beautifully. I've been very, very fortunate to know Linda, and we're a supporter of the program, and I've been very fortunate because she's asked me to be a mentor to a young woman in Kenya. And I have to say that process has taught me so much about what it means personally to also give of my time. And I have to say I've probably received a lot more than I've given, but it's been truly inspirational.
So do you think if more people learn about programs such as the Global Give Back Circle and BRAC and Water.org and CAMFED and so many of the other programs that you've talked about today, if people learn more about them, will they want to participate?
I hope so. So often we don't hear enough about the positive things. We always hear about the challenges, and whether it's a challenge about poverty, whether it's a challenge about healthcare, whether it's a challenge about education, we need to hear much more about what's actually happening and what's actually happening on the ground, and that the work that organizations like BRAC, like Water.org are undertaking, and the results and what they're learning. And if we could do more, I can't imagine why people wouldn't be inspired.
There's a unique dual focus of the Mastercard Foundation. It's youth education and microfinance. Mm-hmm. We talked sort of around this. How does it all work together for the Mastercard Foundation? How is it being successful? What's the best part about it, and what's the part that you're going to make even better?
I have to say that one of the challenges which many young people face is making that transition from what we would call school to work. Because the reality for particularly many young people in Africa is that they're leading lives as adults, even before they're legally recognized as adults. We speak with young people all the time who are in school and at the same time who are working in a family business, or they're working a series of odd jobs to be able to help their family get by. And it's that earning and learning phenomenon, which is very, very critical for young people. It's a reality. And just what we know is that so many programs, well-meaning programs, are focused on one or the other. And they pose questions to families to help, and basically families have to make choices. Do I keep my kid in school, or am I better off having my son or daughter work on the farm? And so with our opportunity, what we're looking to figure out with our partners is how can we deliver relevant programming which recognizes the reality of young people today and recognizes the importance that they want to be able to contribute to their families, and yet at the same time they have dreams. They want to go to school and they want to be able to learn and to be able to improve their lives. And so what we're looking to do is figure out how we can help young people transition, access learning, access market relevant skills, access mentors, and at the same time access financial services. So we want to bring it together between our youth learning and our microfinance programs.
So Reeta, we've talked about you as a young girl in Malaysia. We've talked about your experiences with the UN and in business and in other global nonprofits. We've talked about the experiences that you had with Mastercard Foundation over the past several years, and we've even talked about some advice that you're going to give and you're giving to companies and individuals and governments. Now let's look ahead 20 years, and you're looking back.
When I'm retired?
Okay, you can be retired.
That'd be good.
And you look back, where did you succeed? And where have you yet to succeed?
Stan, I know that change comes in decades, and change sometimes comes in generations as well. But I would hope that in 10 years from now, the Mastercard Foundation will be a leader, and will be a leader in the space about helping young people transition from school to work and to do that successfully. And we'll be a leader so that we can be a resource to other funders, other practitioners, other NGOs, a resource to policymakers, and a resource to governments. And I would love to think of a time 10 years from now where it'll be very clear that financial institutions are thinking about young people. When they think about clients, they're thinking about how they can serve young people with savings accounts. I'd like to think of policymakers recognizing the importance of listening to young people and recognizing that young people have to be the solutions to climate change, the solutions to green economies, the solutions to new jobs and innovation. And I'd like to see how young people are just vested with the capacity and the capability and as well as the confidence to become part of those solutions. That's where I'd like to see us 10 years from now.
Rainmakers. What role do you think Rainmakers plays in helping this global transformation?
You have such a special and privileged role of telling stories and empowering and inspiring so many people who do not realize, who have no access to this kind of information, that change is happening, that change is afoot, that we can be courageous enough to be optimistic about the future. And you have a very, very special role, not only in just helping people learn, but inspiring them to actually become engaged and to take action.
So I hope you've had an opportunity to watch all 3 episodes that we've done with Reeta Roy of the Mastercard Foundation, because I don't know about you, but Gail, I learned so much just from talking with her, and frankly, I came inspired to do more.
If you go to their website, Stan, it's absolutely amazing, themastercardfoundation.org. They have a list of books. They have a list of quotes of great people. They have the list of the organizations that they work with that you can, and any individual can support as well. So it's an inspiring website as well as an inspiring individual.
Yeah, so the Mastercard Foundation itself, what does it basically try to do? What are its basic tenets?
Okay, so I'm going to have to read this because it's quite involved, but this is very interesting. So their programs, how they work, is they're inspired by organizations to ask them to send proposals to them. So the proposals are not received just in general. You have to be asked. But this is what they're looking for, their key considerations. When evaluating those proposals, they look for a strategic fit. So does that fall in with their mission and vision, which is really about microfinance and youth leadership? Design, does the program build on best practices? Results, what is the expected impact? So how many millions or thousands of people are going to be impacted by their investing in your organization? And this is the one I love, fresh thinking. Are we testing a new idea? What knowledge may be generated? Efficiency, are the resources well deployed? Sustainability, and sustainability, Stan, as you know, and we see this all the time, that is the key factor.
Yeah, sustainability, and so much here in the United States, we hear sustainability and we think about the environment, and certainly that's very important, but sustainability in a lower middle income country is about economic sustainability. That's creating jobs, and so much, just like it happened in the United States, of job creation in a low income country is you're creating your own job. That's where microfinance comes in, exactly where the Mastercard Foundation is.
Right, and it's so important that they've done such a great job of looking at things from an experienced eye, from a financial implication to the world economy, and the results have been astounding. And it's a new foundation relative to many of the others that have been around for decades. They're going great places.
So are we done with their tenants? Is that where they are?
The last one is evaluation, and they want to make sure that at the very end of the day, can we evaluate that this program is well done, and will it build a model for others?
You know, it sounds like a business, and a business approach to nonprofit work is just fine. Because all of us should be able to measure the results of everything that we do. And I've got to tell you, I was very appreciative of Rita Roy borrowing our phrase, learn, engage, and act, because that's what Rainmakers is all about. What we're doing is we're telling stories about those who are doing just that. They see a problem, they tackle the problem, and then we tell the story from the point of view of the person who is benefiting the most, who, if she or he doesn't have the drive herself, it won't get done.
So, Stan, I think it's important to note to the audience, too, that when we talk about learn, engage, and act, we borrowed those words. Those words actually came from Kathy Calvin, the CEO for the UN Foundation. When we interviewed her in New York right before the UN in 2010,
Yeah, but we asked her.
We did, but she's the one who actually gave us our catchphrase, learn, engage, and act.
And so as we go forth with Rainmakers, the stories that we intend to tell are wherever there is action from an NGO, that there are donors who are helping that NGO, but attacking a problem at the ground level, whether it's water, whether it's global health, whether it's education, whatever it is, that's where Rainmakers is going to be. And so I think, Gail, it's really a good time right now to kind of do what Rita Roy essentially told us to do, which is to talk a little bit about what the people are going to be seeing as our Rainmakers series gets out in the television world.
Okay. You know, Stan, one of the things that we did as a team, which I thought was very effective, is we decided how are we going to focus? How are we going to get the very best stories out there? And we did something that I thought was brilliant. And we thought, why reinvent the wheel? Let's go to the UN and let's look at the Millennium Development Goals, and let's just use those as the basis, because those are the goals that were actually addressed by the world, that the world actually said, we are going to accept these responsibilities as things we need to do to make the world a better place.
And the very first thing that almost is mentioned everywhere with regard to the Millennium Development Goals is helping women and girls, helping them gain access to capital, helping women and girls gain education, helping women and girls achieve good health. So that's one of our primary episodes. Our primary first episodes relates to women and girls.
Well, and it's interesting because, Stan, you brought this up many times as we're writing the scripts and looking at the places and the people and the organizations that we're vetting, because we're not going to tell a story about an organization that isn't truly a responsible organization and an organization that does great work, because we don't want to see a bad organization be highlighted by us and end up on the front page, the top half of the Wall Street Journal, with a bad story. So we vet them carefully.
And something else that we're going to talk about, we're going to focus on poverty, but particularly land ownership and how land ownership relates to poverty. And you were involved in that for many years.
I was gratefully, because I have seen, we talked about microfinance, there's also micro land ownership, where a family can own 1/10 of an acre. And that 1/10 of an acre can actually help them grow enough fruits and vegetables that there's an abundance not just for their family, that they can sell in the marketplace. And that marketplace doesn't mean that they have to drive great distances. It can mean that they sell to their neighbors and get an extra cash. And it turns out, after doing the research on this, that that micro land, now it's about a 1/5 or 1/10 of an acre, and as small as a 1/10 of an acre, about 5,000 square feet.
But it can support a family.
It can support a family with enough abundance of the fruits and vegetables that they can sell that can actually be the income of a wage earner for a year in that particular area.
Another episode is going to be focused on water. Clean water, sanitation, not fighting wars over water, but it is a big, big global issue.
Well, not only is it a big global issue, but it also has a great deal to do with women and girls, just like the micro land ownership.
Oh, that's right. We always talk about women carrying the water because women do and men don't.
Women do, and that's when women end up being sexually abused because they've been carrying the water away from their family, and they can all sorts of bad things can happen to them during that period of time that they're away from their village.
And there's many, many other topics that we can explore, and we will explore right here on Rainmakers, but something that we will always keep coming back to is global health. And it is a changing focal point. It used to be focused on infectious diseases, but now we are seeing there is even more to worry about.
Well, they're talking about the non-communicable diseases now, or they call them NCDs. So the non-communicable diseases would be things like cancer, lung, heart, and diabetes. So what we're finding is a lot of the areas, that, particularly in the lower and middle income countries, people are going to the cities. So they no longer work on the farms, they work in small factories. Well, there's smoking, so they're getting secondhand smoke, they're not getting exercise, they're not eating good nutrition because they're living in the city, and they may be drinking. They maybe never had access to alcohol before.
So there's going to be an awful lot to cover. I hate to cut you off, but we've got about 10 seconds left. Just wanted to remind you that we want Rainmakers TV to be a resource for you. We very much appreciate Reeta Roy and all of the work that she did with us in this 3-part series. Go to rainmakers.tv. You'll learn more. We'll see you right here next week on Rainmakers.